Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you could all be here today for another Android dev stream. I still haven't fixed the chat box on this screen. It happens to look okay now, but I need to fix this for the next stream. How's everyone doing? Hope you all are having a great week. Um, I'm actually really excited to be back at this after last week's 5-hour marathon stream. We did so much and I had a ton of fun, and I had an itch to work on this all week, but I didn't because I want to be strict about making sure all the work on this is like recorded and thrown up for everyone to see. But I'm excited to get back into it. I don't think we're going to do 5 hours this time. I'm probably going to keep it a little bit short. Uh, we'll see. Let's um let's talk about what we are going to work on this week. So last week, we intended to work on the login screen. I'm just pulling up the stream history real quick. And we got kind of far. We talked a lot about architecture. So we talked about like use cases, repository. We went over how our view state should be modeled. So we did a whole debate on data classes versus sealed classes. Decided to use sealed classes. And then we started implementing the view model, which we did not finish, and that's what we're going to finish working on today. I actually need to update this. There's like a fourth YouTube video from last week's stream that should be in here. We'll update that. Um, for those of you who are unaware of this file, let me just share this. Well, actually, if we do exclamation point GitHub, you can find the repo for this project, and there's a file in the root directory called stream history that I update every week when we're done streaming. And I'm pretty diligent about this. I actually have like a continuous integration check that makes sure with every pull request we update this file. So you can trust that this should be up to date. And with each stream, I kind of recap like what we worked on, when it was. I can probably remove the date. I don't think that's really relevant. Um, the links to the YouTube videos, a blog if it's relevant, and then like any pull requests that we made that week. So if you ever miss a stream, this is a great place to go and like see what you missed. Or if any of you are coming into this project for the first time, welcome. And if you don't want to watch the videos all the way back, but you are curious about a specific topic, you can go through here and you can try to find it and hopefully find some resources. Maybe you don't need everything, but you're curious about like, oh, how do I handle typography in Jetpack Compose? Well, you could go here, find the whole YouTube video, or even go right to this pull request, and you can see like the setup for creating your own typography system in Jetpack Compose. Um, so definitely check out this stream history file. But I wanted to use that as just kind of a quick recap of what we did last week and what we're going to do today. However, before that, we have to do a cube solve for tracks. So let's get that out of the way. Thanks for dreaming that, tracks. Let's do this. I am ready this time. We are going to run a prediction. So for those of you who are um, have been watching for a while, you'll have a set of channel points that you could choose to predict how fast I solve this. Um, and uh, if you win channel points, then that's great. You can redeem more channel points, save them up for uh, the Captain America points or anything else. So let's do this. We're going to say, we're going to set it at 27 and a half. So 27.5 and up will be one bucket, and 27.49 down will be the other bucket. I'm going to give y'all 2 minutes to predict on this one. Um, got it. Ooh. Mewtwo, thank you for the follow. I appreciate you coming by. All right, the predictions should be up. So while y'all vote on that for 2 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and get the scramble going. Mutri, with your points you just got from following, you can predict, am I going to solve a Rubik's Cube in under 27 and a half seconds or over 27 and a half seconds? That's what we're about to do right now before we get back into coding. Oh, got a question here. Um, Unfortunately, too late to stay on. That's okay. Thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a great day. Hope you have a good night. You went all in. I love it. Let's see. Um, can I see the timer on my screen? Okay, it's moving. We're not at 2 minutes yet. So, while we're waiting 2 minutes, anyone have anything exciting to share? Anyone working on anything cool this week? Learn anything new? What were some Android announcements this week? I think they announced the Android Dev Summit this week. I should really get better at writing these down and having a recap before the stream. They announced Android Dev Summit this week. They announced the date of the Pixel 6 launch, which is October 16th, 2 weeks from yesterday. Um, or 19th, or whatever 2 weeks from yesterday is. That's when the Pixel 6 is coming out. So, all right, the prediction is about to close. I'm not warmed up today, so what are y'all voting for here? Okay, so let's us get started. So here's the scrambled cube, just so everyone can see it. And okay, let's see what we can do here. Oh no, I messed up. Oh no. Oh no. I was cruising and I got nervous and I messed up. Oh no. This is embarrassing. We were almost there. I was going so fast and then my muscle memory confused me. Oh, this is embarrassing. Well, someone is about to be very, very lucky because we went way over 27 seconds this time. Y'all can see, just want to zoom in here and prove that 46 is kind of an outlier. Usually, oh, I guess we're like half and half right now. That's unfortunate, but congrats to the one person who was the underdog there, who didn't believe in me. Ah, I can't believe I messed that up. I was cruising. I was totally gonna crush it, and I messed up like the last algorithm. That's a pain. I'm sorry. Ah, I'm so upset. Okay. Well, that was fun. I'm sure we'll get another one in here. Um, I would love to get to where I would say I'm pretty consistently under 30, but the problem is I'm not like I used to just fidget with this all day long. Oh my god, nice job, Wild Dog. I used to fidget with this all day long, and then I really did get like sub 30 like almost all the time. Um, but I don't really fidget with it as much anymore, so I'm a little rusty. But I'll keep practicing. Maybe I'll stick with the prediction being like over under 30 seconds. We'll try that one next time because I want to pick something that's like reasonable. Like I didn't like 30 seconds because I used to say that I was almost always under 30 seconds, but that's not so true anymore. All right, so let's talk about what we didn't get to last week. I have a lot of thoughts from last week, but focus on C and F rest is easy. Yeah. Um, so last week we started on our login view model. Uh, Clearly, I did not document this at all. We'll try to add some documentation on this um, today. But so we have methods here for like email changed and password changed. Um, we have yet to implement the login button clicked and the sign up button clicked. And so we'll implement those today. Um, or we'll try to. But words. Let's go with our continue with our test-driven development approach on this. So let's write some tests for what we expect to happen with like login button click. Let's start there. And this leads to, sorry, I'm just thinking, I'm juggling a lot of thoughts here. Um, because I know there's some refactoring that I want to do, but I'm wondering if I should. I think the smart thing to stick with TDD is let's write the tests we need, and then let's worry about like how we would refactor stuff later. Um, there's some refactoring that we'll have to do ahead of time, um, specifically around our login test. Let's talk about what test I'm worried about, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's pretend we're gonna write a test for like a um do I want to write an error test? Let's write a test for like a failure logging in for like invalid credentials or something. So let's say test invalid credential login. So here's what I want to do. I want to get them credentials, which can be our default credentials. And what I want to do is I want to build our view model. Let's enter that email and password. I'm just going to copy this from the other test. And then what I want to do is I want to click login. And then what I'm expecting to happen here, you joined for the last 2.5 hours and I watched all the project videos. I hope you enjoyed them. That's a lot of stuff to watch, but thank you for coming by, yes. Um, so we're going to build the view model, enter stuff, click login, and then we're going to assert the view state, and we're going to expect login view state dot um, error, submission error. And we've already got a lot going on here. Um, so man, there's a lot that we didn't get through last week um, that I need to work through. And let's kind of talk about them one at a time because I don't really know how to structure all of this. So the first thing I thought about was, uh, yeah, naming conventions are the worst. Whoever that was, I hope they never come back. Or they can help me with this convention conversation that I'm ready to have right now. So there's a couple things wrong with this test. First, well, one is words. Let's talk about our view state real quick. Forget the test. I want to talk about this view state because it's relevant to writing the test. So we converted our login view state to this sealed class that has all these possible situations for our login state to be in. There's like the initial state, which has like basic empty credentials, the active state where you're entering email information. You've got like your submitting state, and then one we've got here is the submission error. And I like this. This is saying, hey, we want to show that the user had an error logging in. But what I want to narrow in on is this idea right here. Should our sealed class have a string value for the error message, or should it be an integer like string resource? On one hand, if it's a string resource, then I don't have to worry like about the view model, like doing any sort of resource modification. It would just be the view, which has the ability to pull string resources, would do so. I think the reason some people don't like this is, well, what happens if one day I want my error message to come from like the API? Maybe, our app, I think, will probably limit it to pulling from, oh no, let me know if anyone else is having issues. Ooh, I do see that, I am dropping frames, apparently. Why? What is happening? I don't have anything new open. Um, oh no. Oh no. Oh no, okay. I think we are back. Will we stay back? I don't know. So far, the dropped frame rate looks good. Um, and I can see my sound going out. I just don't see anyone in chat. Okay, Trax sees me. Okay. Not sure what happened. Maybe this poor thing is overworked. One day I will figure out the multi-device or multi-machine streaming and we'll stream from the PC and just do a capture card to the MacBook. That is like the plan one day, but I just need to take the 30 seconds that it takes to figure that out. Um, but it's so weird. I like have not had an issue in a while um, streaming. This has happened once before, but let's hope that it doesn't happen again. Um, okay, so where were we? I did record the last video. I should be able to splice these together, so I'm not going to do a huge recap. Let's talk about what I was working through before all of this failed. So we talked about this submission error state that happens on our login screen, and the idea that the error message here is a string. But then we debated, like, well, is that the best thing? Like, could I make it like a string resource? And then the view layer is what will be able to have reference to the resources and then look up the string. Um, and I think this works for a lot of apps, especially if like, well, everything is done on the device, right? But a concern could be, well, what if I want the error message I display to be something that comes back from an API? Now we have an actual string and not a string resource. And so this is kind of the debate. And I've seen something I don't really like, but you missed the notification. Oh no. Well, you only missed the fact that my stream died and I had to restart, so you haven't missed a bunch, Assassin. Um, oh, yeah, let's see what Raphael is doing. Because I'm always open to seeing how other people handle this. I'm curious if this is going to be what I was about to say. It is. So we actually do this at the Capsule app, is we have like we do it a little bit differently, but yeah, we have kind of a single class that has like a string resource or an actual text, and then we compare that way. Um, and maybe this is the way to go. So, and I like that you have okay, so you have this get string function that defaults to a dynamic text. Oh, I see. It's not so much that it's one or the other. It's like a sealed class. You can only choose. Ours is like a single data class that has a string resource and a text param, and it basically does like a null check. Like it tries to get the string, and if it doesn't, it falls back to a resource. But this is even more explicit. So I like this. I think that we could do something like that. Add tokens to it for formatting, if you needed to. Yeah. Um, okay. Um, let's try this out. Let's try this out. Um, so where am I going to put that? Well, I think something like that would probably go in core UI. Also, I hate that I have core UI core. I need to. How do I want to do this? We're going to put vertical spacer, just do a little refactoring here, inside the components folder. And we're going to get rid of this file, or this package. The other thing I need to do is switch on a branch before I forget. Finish, login, view model. Um, I don't know where I would put this, but let's put it in here. So I'm gonna call the same thing. I'm gonna call it a UI text. And I just saw this in my background before I forget. Let's update that package name there. Okay, so let's copy the same idea. So we'll do a sealed class UI text. Um, we're going to have, what do we call this? We had dynamic text and resource text. I don't know how I feel about dynamic text. Like, can I call it string, or will that technically yell at me? Because I don't think it would. No, okay. Oh, well, yeah, so it gets confused here. Let's call it string text, and then we could have resource text. And yeah, we can annotate this with at string resource or at string res to make sure it gets the string res. Does that work as a value class? So I think it could, but I'm not really sure I want it to be a value class. I mean, I guess, can a value class be an instance of a sealed class? I guess that is the question. I don't know if I can do that. Uh, let's find out real quick just to see what that would do. Okay. Because we're saying string text. Yeah, I don't think that yeah, inline classes could not extend classes. So if I want to have that type safety of having the UI text sort of sealed class, then I can't use the value class. But to Tim's point, I don't know if it really adds a whole lot here. Okay, so let's throw some notes on this. So um, this is a sealed class that contains all of the different ways text can be presented to the UI. Um, yeah, I think that's good enough there, right? Um, and then so let me type something out, and then I want to play around with this a little bit. So in Raphael's example, we had UI text dot get string, and then we had to pass some stuff like I think we passed the context, and then we said okay, return when this is string text. We want to return this dot value is resource text. This dot um, context dot get string. This dot value. I think this works. One thing I was gonna play around with is last time someone mentioned like sealed interfaces, and I wonder if this would, if I made this a sealed interface, I could put like the get string function there, and then I require each of these to override it. Um, and I wonder if that would be nicer. But I guess it ultimately ends up feeling like the same amount of code, especially because this like gets extension functions will get like, I don't know if I have to specify it. No, here I don't need to. But usually it gets like inlined anyways, so it probably ends up being about the same code. Um, so I think I'll stick with the extension function here. Um, what's the word here? Evaluates. If you don't want to repeat UI text as string text, you can move string text out of UI text. Yeah, I don't mind repeating it. Another thing here. In this case, I would use a sealed interface because there's nothing to inherit from UI text as a base class. Hmm, that's an interesting perspective. But okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Here's how I like to do these things. Well, first let me write some note here. So, evaluates the value of this UI text based on its type. If necessary, use this to evaluate a string resource. So here's what I like to do. I like when I'm coding. Just kind of a thought, especially when I'm experimenting. I like to remember to share these small things I like to do. Um, we've got, sorry, just checking messages. So we've got a solution that we're debating whether or not it works or whether or not it's best, but we know we have something on the screen right here that we like and it does work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what we like and does work and I'm going to commit this real quick. And then I'm going to go down the sealed interface rabbit hole. And if we end up not liking it more, we just reset and we're back to this part. So I think that's really important. Like if you're kind of just tinkering, but you've got something that does work, commit what you have and then go back to tinkering so that you can always reset if the next thing doesn't work out. I think that's what I'm a little afraid of, especially because I've never made a sealed interface before. Um, so let's try one. So how does this work? So I think I just type it the same way, sealed interface UI text. And then what, I put something on here like get string that takes a context. And then do I define no, I like thinking out loud and I like tinkering. This is really cool. The worst thing that happens is I reset. So do I define the subclasses inside of this or outside within the same file? Um, I don't know. Both work. Okay. Um, I kind of like that sealed classes make me put it on the inside. I think this is definitely just a preference. Um, but actually, I wonder if okay, but here's oh, I see. I see. So the difference is if I put it outside, I won't need the like period, like the UI text dot, like Raphael mentioned. But okay, but let me just type this out so I can see what this looks like. So we'd have string text, UI text. So here we would say return value. And I could make this a data class. Yeah, nice. Um, and then we could have resource text. Um, get string, so return context dot get string with that value. If you don't need that, regardless, extension functions are for classes you don't control. Ah, so you missed the, like, this was the tail end of last week's stream, so you were probably asleep. We had a whole conversation about why you might want extension functions even for your own class, and we referenced really interesting blog posts. I can pull it up and send it to you. Um, I think that in general, yes, extension functions are helpful when you don't control the code, but they provided some examples for where it would be nice to have extension functions. Okay, so I'm typing this out, and I don't love this. I think if I was writing a class that like had more things, more responsibilities, um, this would be nice. But in the instance where I only have one real responsibility and I can handle that using the extension function, um, I think I like that a little better. Um, and actually, the other thing to like Tim's point is technically I think I could put the function here, but I don't know, I kind of like splitting up the responsibility. Yeah, let me pull it up for you right now, Tim. Just because I'll forget, but maybe I should share it in chat because it would be interesting. Um, login implementation, this one. So I will spare everyone reading through it, but some interesting notes in there. Okay. So we've got a UI text. Let's take this and run with it. Um, more specifically, let's go back to our view state. Um, so the submission error, we said we want to go either way. So here we can make this a UI text. Ah, but Mm, okay, let's keep going down the rabbit hole because I'm not thinking far enough ahead. But now I'm looking at it and oh, okay, we're still good. I was thinking about in my test, in my log and view model tests, how am I going to mock the context? But I don't need to because my unit tests aren't going to worry about getString. My unit tests can basically run an assertion against like the type. So I can say I'm expecting this kind of UI text and then verify that we got it. So let me show you an example of that. So here, um, let's say we're going to expect UI text, that string text. Your email and or password are incorrect. Or really, in my app, I want this to be a string resource. So actually, let's take this. We're going to take this string and put it in our strings.xml. They're invalid credentials. And so here we're going to say we're going to expect resource text r.string.error invalid credentials. Okay, so we solved part of this problem for this test, but there's even more to think about here. So we build the view model, enter info, click login, and this is for invalid credentials. So we're going to say this is the view state we expect when we're done. Okay, but there's a secondary part here on, well, I need to mock the response that we get from our use case. So we have this mock login result for credentials, where we could say, like, for these credentials, we want the result to be login result dot failure dot invalid credentials. So this test reads correctly. I would actually say that, um, how do I words? I want to add a little more to this test. Specifically, we want to make sure that we see the loading state in between clicking the login button and when we get the response. And this is a tricky thing to test. Let's write out the test the way we would expect it to work, talk about why what we have already isn't going to work, and then we'll make it work. So the first thing is, okay, we click login button, and then what I really want to do is I would say assert view state, login view state dot submitting. And I think that has like, our credentials, right? So the way I would change the way this is written, we're going to assert the view state, and then instead of mock login result, really what I want to do here is I want to emit the login result. I'm going to say, like, at this moment in time, emit this result. Tell the use case to return with this. And then, once it does, we're going to assume that we assert the view state. So what's the problem with this? Well, first is we have the same sort of idea over here. Let's rename this. In our fake, we're going to say emit login result for credentials. But let's look at the source code for how we handle this, and let's talk about why this doesn't give us what we want. So here we're using our mocking library, and we've got this co-every call. It says every time we call our use case with these credentials, return this result. And effectively what that's going to do is return instantly. But we don't want that, right? Like what we would want in our tests is whenever this is called, we would basically want it to just suspend. And then when we tell it to, we can say, stop suspending and actually emit this information. So that's the problem we have to solve. Now, there might be better solutions to this, and if anyone's done this, let me know. But let me show you a way I know how to do this. So one way I know how to do this is we keep track of something called a continuation, um, which is like basically like a way of continuing a coroutine, and it has a type, which is what you want to return. So this would be a continuation of a login result. Okay, so that's kind of the first step. The next one is like, okay, instead what we're going to do is every time, um, hmm, this is getting trickier. Um, I'm just thinking about where to do this mocking. Let's think about this. Let me talk through the idea, and then we'll do some refactoring. This is one of the harder things for me to explain when I haven't thought through this before. So one thing we want to do here is, okay, basically we want to say every time we call our mock, and here I'm just going to use any. For any credentials, we're going to say returns, and then we can call a suspend coroutine. And we can basically say we get a continuation. Will this work? Why is this yelling at me? I thought I wrote it like this. Oh, can I not return? I can't return it here because, okay, hold on. Let's try this. Mock login result. I could wrap it in a run blocking. I guess that's one way to do it. Um, but okay. So this speaks to another consideration is I don't really like this any. I kind of want to tell this view model, or this, not view model, I want to tell this fake, like, only do this for specific credentials so that I cover myself in that if I try to submit credentials that my test isn't expecting, I want it to fail. Because I want that rigid test that, like, here's the inputs I'm expecting. Basically, I don't like, if I can help it, I don't like to use any in a test. So, um, kind of what I'm thinking here is like writing a function like suspend login result for credentials. Actually, that's what I want this to say. I want like suspend login result for credentials. And then have that consume some credentials, and then put that in our mock. And then so what we would say here is, okay, whenever the user calls our use case with the supplied credentials, return a suspend coroutine that um, can be continued via login result continuation. And then, okay, so that's great. And then so here we could say, um, but I guess here I don't really need the credentials anymore. Um, because what we would do here in the emit is we would basically say login result continuation dot resume with um, result. But I guess that's resume. Yeah. But I guess that's fine. We can basically say here, I guess it's fine that we don't pass credentials into the emit method because they've been validated here. That will only suspend for certain credentials. Okay, so here we can say emits the supplied result to our login result continuation. Let's recap this again. Whenever we call our use case, we want to suspend and just keep track of that continuation. So we basically will like hold on and do nothing. And then when we call this, we will actually, resume the continuation with this result, which effectively causes our use case to return. And now we can test our like submission error state. So we will have to update things a little bit more. Um, like here, we're gonna have to say So here, let's write this. So we'll have our suspend, which will do the same thing. This should actually be a suspend. Yeah, there might be a better way. If you have something that returns a flow, it becomes a lot easier because you can like instantiate the flow yourself or use like a channel. Um, why do I need to break it apart? Yes, I'm technically doing something in the middle. Let me show you. Basically, I want to say, click this button, verify we're in the submitting state, and then emit a result, and now verify that we're in like the completed state is the idea. So previously, we're just kind of returning instantly, and then my test never has a way to verify that we were in that middle state. Um, there are other ways around this that I've seen. Um, Now that I said it out loud, like some other ways I've seen is so one way I've seen it is instead of running that assertion like that, um, so our assert view state is like we're asserting the state at any given moment. Another way I've seen it is that each time a state is observed, we store it in like a list, and then I would just kind of check after the fact. Say, okay, I mock everything, I go through this flow, and I'm expecting that along the way I had these three different states in this particular order. And I wonder if that's a better way to write this test that's a lot less confusing than whatever the heck I just did over here. Um, that might be a lot less confusing. Don't you set the state right before you call the use case? Yes, um, well, when I click the button, I set the state, and then I call the use case, yes. But if the use case is returning instantly, then like by the time I run my next assertion, the call is completed because this is in a unit test, so everything's kind of running like sequentially. Um, I'm wondering if there is a better, if I can go the other way. So let me show you a library that does what I was just describing. This is not there. Cache App Turbine. Oh, this isn't by Square. Or is it? Is Cache App by Square? I don't know. So there's this testing library called Turbine um, that is for testing flows. And the way it works is like you could have a flow of something and then you call dot test, and then you can like await items and then assume it's completed. And so I'm wondering if um, something like this would be better. Um, where instead of doing our own hack where we only emit when we're ready, we go through the whole flow and then we kind of verify after the fact, like, hey, this was everything that came back. Um, how come I chose not to return flow right there? That's a good question. All right, let's hold on. I'm gonna take this file. I'm gonna revert back a couple things that I did, or roll back, or whatever it's called now. I'm gonna roll back a couple things I did. Um, just to talk about this a little further. Actually, let's roll this one all the way back too. Let's roll back and let's talk about what we're trying to do here. So, could I add a delay in the fake use case? It sounds ugly. It does sound ugly. And that's kind of what I was trying to do, except like, without like knowing internals about the delay. Um, I think we could do something like this, but what I'm worried of is I'm not really sure um, how to do this. Um, like I'm trying to see if there's an example of this. Um, am I going to use store from Dropbox? I don't know. Um, maybe something I could think about in the future. Um, let's, do we want to go down this rabbit hole? See if this can help us out? Um, I'm just wondering, how it works. Ah, gotta hydrate. Cheers. We have an idea with this. Let's take it and let's see if we can figure out a solution. Um, let's see if we can get something kind of working here. So, oh, cool. We have this. So I just want to fill this out. This is what we're expecting. Credentials. Oh God, can't type. Um, login result that failure that invalid credentials. Okay, sorry, waiting for the Gradle build. So I think a better way we could write this test is like do all of these things and then expect our view states as they come through. Um, I think that that makes sense as like another way to write this test. But the question is, well, how do we do that? Um, because the way I typically write this is I like have this assert view state that gets the view state value as it is and asserts that it's equal to the expected. Um, so we could write another function that I need a way to get all of the historical states. Like what I want, let's write the method signature. I basically want to say like assert view states, you know, list login view state. And then I want to do something like, okay, if I were using Turbine, the way it would work is like I would call test on this. Um, and then I would say, why is this yelling at me? Oh, because I need the experimental time. Also, this should be suspend. Um, but then I could basically do like state in states. So that state equal is equal to await item. But the problem being, I think I need to start this. Where in the production code will you put the flow that you're about to test? Well, so the flow that I'm thinking of testing is our state flow that comes back from the view model. So the other idea we're pursuing is our view model emits a state flow, and I want to verify all of the states that come to it. And this idea that we have here kind of captures it, but the problem is like, I think I need to start collecting basically right when I um, build the view model. And so then I'm not sure what to do here. Um, I don't think this works. Uh, one thing I want to keep in mind is they mentioned that there's an experimental thing, and I basically want to just ignore that. or say that I'm okay with that. Where was that at? Um, we're using Groovy, so let's just copy this and throw this in our build decorator. I forgot where this goes. I think it goes in here. Nope, it doesn't go there. Um, where do I put this? Does it go at the top level? How do I do this in my other app? I know I do this in another app. Hold on. Let me pull up the source code for that. Um, okay. I can put this here. Yeah. I can put this in here, which I think works, but then it applies to like everything and not just like test. Um, but that's fine. I'll take that. Um, okay. So this is one idea, but again, I'm worried that like it's not until I call test that it starts collecting from the view state. So is there a way that I can call this beforehand? Um, can we Google this? Has someone something here? Can we Google this? Like, insert all values from stateflow. Happen. See if someone has written something like this. Here's the thing about unit testing. Um, see if there's an answer. Okay, so they kind of do, it looks like I'm not sure what's going on here. What can I do in this? I can await items, I can expect events. I mean, I can run this to see if it does do what I'm thinking, but I don't think it will. Um, let's see what would happen. Let's run this and let's see what would happen. Um, if we do like just a list of this, or we would have like dot um, initial. I just want to run this and see what happens. And I could also decide how crucial it is to even test the loading state. We should. There should be a way to figure this out. I don't want to cut corners if I don't have to. I need to reach out to Mohit. What do you mean? Oh, interesting. Oh, this is yelling at me because of our UI text thing breaking actual compilation. Um, okay, let's run this. See if this will work. Do 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 do. I mean, if it fails, but it gives me something helpful, then like that's a start. Um, if it doesn't, we will just have to guess. How's the stream been, by the way? My metrics look good. I'm not really sure what happened earlier, but well, one thing that makes sense is we would have this operation not implemented. Um, so okay, let's go about this a slightly different way. Um, on just the view states. So awesome. Let's forget this credentials test for a moment and let's talk about let's use our test initial view state just as a way to test or even update credentials just as a way to test um, this idea. So when I do this, I'm basically going to say, oh, we want to start with initial, and then we're going to um, go into active. Let's run this, and let's see how this works out, if it works out. I can think of a lot of reasons why this won't work. Okay, interesting. So we're saying expected active, but was initial. Interesting. Does that make sense? Um, oh, that's that kind of makes sense. So let's talk about why I say kind of. So this is backwards because truth, we expect like you say assert that actual is equal to expected. So I want to say that assert that the state I get right now is equal to what I expect. And now when I run this, the error message is going to make a little more sense and basically describe exactly what I was afraid is happening, which is that, okay, we are um, expecting initial, right? But what we actually got was like active credentials. So this highlights that while what I wrote here seems like it makes sense, the problem is when we call it, that it's being called sort of after everything is done. So it's not collecting all of the historical states. Um, so I almost wish like it's almost as if I need to call this in the beginning and then have a way of like referencing them. And I'm surprised they don't have an explanation for this. Um, like, because I could call the test lambda when it starts, but then, um, how do I do this? You know, maybe that works. Uh, yeah, actually, so let's. I'm looking at this code right here, this one in particular, and it's actually standing out to me as something interesting. So we've got this like thread sleep, and we send an item. You notice how their test says like, okay, we're asserting this, then this, then this, then this. Um, and it awaits till you emit something. And so because it's awaiting, maybe I can call this up front. Say like, here's like, what if I do this? So basically I'm saying like, okay, if I take, yeah, and even though that sounds backwards, right? It actually like it kind of makes sense. I could basically even say like expect view states is maybe a better name here. So after I build the view model, I say I want to expect these view states in this order. Um, and then when that's all done, um, let's run this. Let's see if this works. I think I might need to then also cancel it and say that I'm not caring about it anymore. I also think that this test is going to fail for another reason. Okay, timed out waiting for 1,000 milliseconds. Interesting. Um, oh, um, is it because this suspends and my test doesn't keep running? Yeah, which I could add like here. I could say after I, you know, cancel and ignore remaining events. Ooh, you can cancel and yeah. Um, but my test failed here. It says it times out waiting. And I actually think that's because this suspends. Um, and so my test doesn't actually like keep going. So it's almost like I would want, it's not great, but can I put this in a run blocking? Um, so this will kind of launch in its own coroutine, keep my stuff going. Um, yeah, we'll launch a run blocking coroutine. Oh, but I guess not necessarily if it's run blocking. I might have the exact same problem. Um, yeah, I have the exact same problem. Pass your test code as a lambda to the robot function. Yeah, that is an idea that I had. Yeah, that was an idea I had. No, so I think I understand exactly what the problem is. Let me pull them up side by side so I can explain this better. So our problem right now is, sorry, just checking messages. So our problem right now, we build the view model, we call expect view states, and then we enter stuff. And even before this run blocking wrapper, so what happens is we call this, and this test suspends. So it can run what's inside of here. But the problem is, like, this is waiting for something that can't happen because I've effectively made my test suspend itself. So, kind of to Tim's point is like, I need to then run stuff inside of test. Um, so, um, mm, so it's almost like, all right, hear me out on a crazy idea. Let me type out what I'm thinking in my head when I can get to the file. So to Tim's point about like running inside, so it's almost like I want to do something like assert view states after action. And then basically we would say like we would take some function. It could be a function on a login view model robot, right? Um, and then view states. And what we would do here is we could say, okay, view model dot view state dot test. We could say run the action or this dot action. Is that how I did? Dot test. So perform the action and then say, okay, Do I just call action? How do I, okay. Sorry, word. Ignore all this. So I guess something I could do is say, assert view states after action. Say, okay, here is a process that you need to run, a series of log and view model calls. And then once I do that, these are the states that I'm expecting to have received. Does this make sense? Seems like it does. Um, let's uh, let's try to call something with it. So love it if it works. Can you try wrapping the dot test inside of launch after this? Um, I could. We can explore that. Let's see if we can get this to work first. I'm gonna remove this test until I know that I can make it work on the other ones. Um, so actually, this is okay. So what we actually want here is we're gonna say assert view states after action. Um, how do I do this though? Um, enter email, credentials, dot email, dot value, and then credentials, password, dot value. Um, and then we've got our view states. And actually, this is going to be a little different than what I originally thought. So here, we're going to have basically we're going to say, well, there's three states here that actually happen. There's initial, then there's basically login view state that active, but with the email. Um, so this is maybe a better way to do it. So we'll have our email and password. And so really we're going to enter the test email, and then we're going to enter the test password. And our search is going to look like this. So we'll have the initial, we'll have our active with just the email, right? Um, and then we're going to have active, but with the email and password. Because there's really like three view states that get emitted there. So this is confusing. I don't love it. I don't like how many steps it is, but I love it if it works, like Tim said. Let's find out if it does. And this no longer needs to be run blocking test. No, it does, because the assert view states. Um, no way, that worked. Just to make sure I'm not crazy, let's. Oh, but we said, can I? Okay, so just to make sure I'm not crazy, let's like comment one out, and this should fail. Am I the only one who does this? That I make my tests fail to make sure they're actually running the way that I think they are? Okay, they are, because this failed because it expected active but was initial. Okay, so this actually worked. Um, that's exciting. Let's even just split this up a little more. Okay, this is trippy, but I can roll with it. Um, and I actually think we could do even better with this, or another way of looking at it. Okay, so that works. Um, let's try to go back to our nice little DSL approach with this. Um, so we've got this assert view states after action. I'm going to move that action parameter last. And what that will give me is, and we can get rid of this one. Let's replace this one. Um, and what this can give me is basically I can take this out and I can do the real cool like trailing lambda thing. Well, not like that. Um, where I like, okay, so I insert view states after action, then here's the thing. Um, Headset died again. Oh no. Good luck on your interviews. Oh, I won't forget to upload. Thank you all for stopping by. Let's, oh man. Okay. I'm going to the behavior first and then the expected states. I mean, I still can, even though I rearranged the parameters. Like this is valid, but I agree. The named arguments are kind of nice here. So maybe I'll keep that as it was. Okay. So now that we have something that works, let's go back and clean some of this up and make this a little easier to follow. So what are some ways we can clean this up? Well, there's one thing which like is kind of a debate like, do I need test update credentials and test initial state if the update credentials is going to verify that initial happened along the way? I'm going to vote no. So I want to get rid of that. And the other thing I would like to do is, okay, yes, I will push this soon. Let me go a little further into my train of thought here. The other one being, this works, but it's confusing. So let me uh, show you how I would split this out. So I don't mind. I'm actually a huge fan of like splitting up code if it makes it more readable. So we could do like, you know, initial state, uh, the email entered state, the credentials, and then we would have like email password entered state, credentials equals credentials. So, and then here we could have, expected view state will be list of initial state, email entered state, email password entered state. And then here we can replace this with. So same idea, but now, even though I can't fit it all in one screen, but this test becomes a little more digestible. Here's my test input. Here are the names of all of the states that I expect. Here's the list of those expected states. And now we've got just this little 10 lines that says, hey, build the view model and assert the view states after this action. Sounds good to me. Um, let's let's commit it. We'll let CP run with this thing, and then I'm gonna take this paradigm that we just added, and then I'm gonna try to do the invalid credentials test with this approach. So um, updating test to use Turbine. Um, this is gonna get annoying to write with other tests later on, and that like I'm gonna have to add all of these. I wonder if there's a way to skip some. I don't know if Turbine has a way to just like await any or something. Why did you fail? Unused private member. Oh, because I don't use default credentials anymore. Fine, we'll get rid of it. Um, okay. Sorry. Okay. I pushed it. CP, you should find it. The branch, actually, one thing that's helpful, if you look at the GitHub repo, um, I have it so it auto deletes branches after they're merged. So um, there's only one branch for you to check out right now, anyways. That's not development. So have at it. I am going to take this and run with the invalid credentials test. So that's another thing. Like, so I'm going to copy and paste this. And I think about this a lot. Like, I'm now going to write another test that does almost the same thing as this one, but with some extra steps. Like, is it worth it? I mean, I think the answer is technically yes, even though it feels like boilerplate, but submit invalid credentials. So, okay. Um, let's see. Well, what do I want to clean up here? Well, one thing is I want to keep track of like the completed credentials because I'm going to reference this more than once. So let's pull out what do our credentials look like once the user's completed their input. Oops, sorry. That's what this looks like. So we'll add the completed credentials. So inside this submit invalid credentials test, we've got two more view states I care about. There's the submitting state, which will be login view state dot submitting, and the credentials will be completed credentials. And then submission error state is what we expect to happen after. So login view state dot submission error. And then here, credentials will still be completed credentials. And the error message will be UI text dot resource text r dot string dot error invalid credentials. Okay, so then we'll have submitting state and then submission error state. And what do we change about our actions? So we'll enter email, we'll enter password, and then we'll say click login button. I guess I could probably remove this. It's just clarity, I guess. But the other thing we do need to do is we want to mock the response. We want to say, like, we want to mock the response for credentials. So let's do that. Credentials will be completed credentials. And the login result, or rather just result, will be login result dot failure dot invalid credentials. All right, that was a lot, but I think this should do it. Now we're gonna run this, and I want to figure out why is this yelling at me? This is also experimental? Interesting. I will add that to our compiler flags in a second. Okay, so this failed because of an operation not implemented. This is our TDD approach here. We wrote the test, but the view model doesn't do what we think it's doing, so let's go ahead and um, add that next. Before I do that, I'm going to go back into my build.gradle file, and I want to add this argument so that it stops yelling at me about um, using experimental coroutines. Okay, login button clicked. Woohoo! So what we want to do is get our current credentials and we're going to um, log in. So I think we actually need to launch a coroutine here. View model scope.launch. Um, and then do, oh, this will be interesting. Um, login result will be credentials login use case. I don't have it in here. Whoops. Credentials login use case with the current credentials. And now we need to handle the login result. So let's just handle one for now. When login result, we could say is login result that failure. Um, we could do some stuff. And then is login result that failure dot invalid credentials. Um, I think technically what I would do here is I would say like we want to update the view state no matter what, right? So what I'm going to do for this moment in time, I'm going to say if login view state dot failure, nope, sorry, if login result dot failure dot invalid credentials. If this is true, let's return login view state dot submission error. We'll say credentials will be our current credentials, and the error message will be that resource text with the invalid credentials error. And what I'm going to do otherwise for now is just say keep the same value. So that's enough to get this compiling, but we've got a use case that will handle the invalid credentials. Let's run our test again, and now it's going to fail for an entirely different reason, because why would coding ever be straightforward, right? Um, and I'm pretty sure the reason it will fail this time, is it running? No. Oh, yeah, this is way low. Oh, this failed compile error? Why? Ah, because I need to pass the use case in here, which I was not doing in my test. Anyone been burned by this before and know why this is going to fail? It's a little tricky. It'll only happen if you've seen this before. Um, Pretty clear in the exception method. So, test worker coroutine 1, module with the main dispatcher had failed to initialize. For test, dispatchers.setMain from colonize coroutine test module can be used. So basically what failed here was inside our view model, we're launching this coroutine, um, view model scope.launch, and we're using this to um, run that suspending function, which is our credentials login use case. The way we do that is inside our um, test is we modify like the dispatchers, and we basically say like when it goes to use the main dispatcher, we want to supply like a test dispatcher or supply that on the test dispatcher instead. And basically how I'm going to do that is copy and paste from a previous project where I solved this problem. Um, and so let's do that real quick. So here we're going to add coroutines test rule. And this will basically be a like JUnit test rule that when the test is starting, you can see we call dispatchers.setMain test dispatcher. And when it's finished, it resets the main dispatcher. And that's all this is going to do. And I just have to import everything. Didn't I have to call cancel inside the test lambda? I did. Let me show you that in a second. Um, Also, let me delete this file. We don't use this. Yeah, so what I call is, oh, I didn't call it. Interesting. I thought I would need like cancel and ignore remaining events, but I did not. Um, I'm surprised that that didn't fail on me. I wonder why. Like, it's still alive because the view model could emit more things. Um, but maybe it is fine just, I don't know. That's a good question why that didn't fail on me. Um, it shouldn't fail, but I think he left something hanging in memory. That's possible. as a result that it's kind of like failing silently. So I guess what I should do is, um, yeah, I would want to cancel. And I think that will this work? Um, Cancel collecting events in the flow. Any events which have already been received will still need consumed via the await function. If I had a second test, it would fail. Maybe. Um, well, I create a new test robot every time, so I don't know if that would happen. But we can run both tests at the same time right now and see if that causes us any issues. But I did add the cancel in there. Ah, so this failed because of the main dispatcher. I added the test rule, but what I forgot to use was actually adding it to this class. So we do uh, the rule annotation, coroutines test rule, routines test rule. So now when I run this, it should be using like a test dispatcher, and I should be able to create coroutines inside the view model without an issue. But it failed again. Interesting. Okay, so we expected submitting, but was submission error. Our test did what it was supposed to do. Our test um, found a mistake because I'm not calling the submitting state when I expected to. So I basically just get the credentials and I launch this when what I should do is right here. I should say view state that value equals login view state dot submitting with current credentials. So maybe this function could be split up. This function's getting kind of long, but now our test should work. Let's hope for the best. Hallelujah. We can handle invalid credentials. That was a lot of work. I'm going to commit this, and I'm going to make a pull request for just this because there was a lot of code here. Um, I also think there's a lot more there's a lot of code here, and there's a lot more to think about on this screen. This screen is getting complicated real quick. Um, About to start going down the MVI rabbit hole to make this even better. I'm kidding. Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay. Uh, Splitting up work here. Um, and we're going to throw this on um, onboarding. Of course, with this, we need to update our stream history file, so let's do that real quick. In this, oh my god, I wrote this wrong here. Screen implementation. October 6th, 2021. What did we add here? We added the invalid credentials test. And yeah, that's really all we did here was invalid credentials test. Amazing. Okay, but I can't believe we spent an hour and 14 minutes on that one flow. But the rest of these should get easier now that we hammered out some of the details around, yeah, around how we test these flows. So it should be a little easier to write some others. Um, One is, so let's, uh, I'm already having more struggles with what we um what we did last week, but let's hmm, let's see if we can keep going on this a little bit more, and then maybe we can. I want to get to the point where we can connect it with the UI. A lot of ideas I had for finishing the login view model um, aren't going to get where I wanted to, or are going to take a lot longer than I thought. But let's talk about hmm, what do we want to do next? Do we want to do the generic failure? Like we could do that, like handle like an unknown failure. Um, let's do that real quick. That one should be quick, given what we already did. So let's do an error login failure. There was a problem logging in. Please check your connection and try again. Check your internet connection and try again. So let's handle the flow where the user tries to log in and it just fails because we don't know why. Um, we're going to copy this test and we're going to say test unknown login failure. Most of this stays the same, except here we're going to say we expect error login failure. And then when we mock the result, we're going to do failure.unknown. And then the rest of the test actually stays the same. Cool. So we can go into our view model. Well, let's run it, make sure it fails. TDD approach here. Yep, that failed. Um, timed out. Interesting. Um, I'm not 100% sure why this would. I guess timed out waiting for view state that didn't happen. This makes sense if that's the case. So let's go back into our view model. Yeah, because we're awaiting something that never happened, which is we're awaiting login result.failure.unknown. And here we're going to say, okay, login view state submission error, credentials equals current credentials, error message will be text.resource text. All right, that's string that error. Um, login failure. This should pass now. We can definitely clean this function up, um, but let's skip for the sake of time. Let's skip the input errors that we talked about. So, like ideally, we would not let you submit if you have not entered your email and password. Um, and actually, there's a couple of ways we could approach this idea beyond just showing an error even. Um, you did it with the launch approach and it's so clean. That's awesome. Do you want to post a link to your fork or make a pull request just so we could look at it? Um, whatever works there. Um, do I want to push this up to the existing PR? I'm gonna. Um, unknown failure. Okay. Um, but while CP is deciding on how he wants to share that, I think for the sake of time, I might skip on the like input errors. In fact, there's other ways we can handle that, right? Like One way to avoid having to deal with empty input errors is you consider making your buttons like disabled until the user enters information, which is an approach we could consider. Um, it's not one that I considered, but for the sake of time, I'm going to skip this because I want to hook this up to the view model. And so really what I should have focused on is the success case. What happens if I mock that I can actually log in? And there's a lot of questions here, like what happens with navigation? I don't know. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to get to connecting it with the UI. I also want to finish doing other parts of the view model. Um, why don't we take what we have in the view model and let's start connecting it to the UI. Um, yeah, no problem. Take your time. I think I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit. I'm going to take what we've added to the view model for the failure case. Let's hook this up to the UI and let's have our UI like display this failure case. Like let's start there just so we can start getting something a little more complete here. And then we can always go back to it. So I'm going to create a new branch from here um, and connect with UI. So how do we do that? Where do we get started? Well, we have our login content, which is basically this. I don't know if the preview will show up yet, but this is basically everything that appears on the login screen. And it's stateless. Well, it's stateless in that like we don't have any remember keywords. It's not managing its own state. It consumes a login view state and some callbacks, and that's it. So what we want for our view model actually is we want to put like another wrapper here, and we're going to call this, I like to call this the screen, login screen. And so what this will be is this will be a composable, and we'll call it login screen, and it consumes the view model. And basically all this will do is get the view state, collect the state, and then it will call into our login content. And so what do we got here? Well, we've got our view state, which will be viewState.value. We've got on email changed, which will be view model email changed. We've got on password changed, which again will just proxy to the view model. We've got on login clicked, which again, basically all of our click listeners we proxy over to the view model, just like this. So this syntax, if you're unfamiliar with it, it's basically the same as saying view model dot email changed. Uh, well, okay, that's not the same as that. It's can I convert it? It's the same as doing this. You could have a lambda where you take that single parameter and you call the function. But if you only have like a single parameter lambda, you can use this syntax, which I like. Not everyone's familiar with it, but just want to point out that's what it's doing. Um, okay, so that's basically that's the fun stuff. We've made our content in a previous stream. We made our view model. This is all we need to do to connect those two things. This little glue right here is actually really quick. It gets a little more complicated in like, well, where does our view model come from? And how do we create that? And I think that that is something we will learn together because I'm not 100% sure how we do all that. And I think there's another question like, well, what do we do with like Hilt? Um, or any other dependency injection framework. And I think that that's something I kind of wanted to steer away from tonight, but I want to show that we can make the login screen work. So I might try to do something kind of in the middle, um, which is like maybe I just have my activity create this composable and view model um, myself, if that makes sense. So here's what I'm thinking about doing, just to demonstrate like that this would work. Um, it's like, let's get the view model. Um, uh, login view model will be login view model. And so what we could do is when the activity is created, we can say, okay, login view model equals login view model class, and then we could do um, a view model factory. This is the whole thing. Is this not how it works? How do we create view models? I don't even remember how to do this anymore. Let me look at my other app. Hold on. Nope, that's not what I want. Um, oh, was I using coin in this other project? I was. God dang it. I know it's view model provider, and then we call like dot get. Oh, maybe it's. I think the factory goes here, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. So I'm just kind of hacking together a way of creating a view model. So, so this will be an object view model provider dot factory, and then this will have a create function that we'll call. And what we're going to put inside here is we're basically going to put login screen, login view model. This is not how the final app is going to work. This is just to throw something on the screen so we can say we finally have some kind of working code. Um, but there's a little more here in that I need like the use case. Um, well, I do have a prod credentials login use case, but that needs a repository. Um, so let's do this. Let's sorry, hold on. I'm gonna go to a credentials login use case real quick. I'm gonna make a file just for today. I'm gonna call it demo credentials login use case. And what this is gonna do basically is I'm just gonna say, you know, return some default value. This is throwing some stuff in the app that will get me through to where I can hook something up and see it working, and then we'll clean it up and make it even nicer, more like what's the word? I don't know, manageable, scalable. So then we're gonna say return login view model use case as t. And then of course we can I can't press it there. I don't know. We'll leave that as it is. So this is just throwing something on the screen so I can run this app and let's see some stuff on the screen. That's a start. I have to wait for the emulator to start up. Sorry about that. Hopefully the emulator wasn't the issue. I don't think it was. We've used it before. So hopefully this isn't what tanked the stream earlier. I didn't think I was going to go through all this stuff today, but this will be definitely next week. What we'll do is we'll clean this up and talk about how to make that more manageable. Um, so some documentation in here while we're waiting. Um, all this composable should manage is consuming a view model, observing its state, and proxying that through to the login content. We are still waiting on the emulator to start up. Classic Android. Um, Fun stuff. This is not, oh no. Um, you could copy the test code into like a gist or something. Oh no. What about, if you just go to like if you have a GitHub account and you go to like gist.github.com, you could create like just the file and dump in like some lines of text, and that would be enough for me to run with. Um, okay, is this starting up? Do I need to actually power it? Oh my God. Is it because I didn't have the emulator powered on? Um, that's embarrassing. Not the first time I've done something like that on this stream. Okay. Why is the progress bar showing up? That's not supposed to be there, right? Okay, let's see if we can enter some stuff. Okay, so we can enter test. Um, oh yeah, we've got that password visibility for ants thing going on. Um, but then I log in. Okay, and the error message shows up. So this is technically functioning. Um, I'm a little concerned why the progress bar is visible. Let's see if we can figure out why. Oh, because I just don't have a loading an if check here. If view state. Um, okay, well, so this is or okay, so I guess really what I want to say is if view state that submitting is if view state okay is view state that submitting. Oh my God, my IDE is lagging on me. Submitting. So if we're submitting, we're going to show the progress indicator. That was a check that was missing from before. Um, cool. I like that this works though. Um, so we've shown, okay, we can connect it to the UI. And then maybe we'll see, oh, well, I'm not doing any validation, so I don't need to type something in. But another thing we can do just to like really test that this is working is like we can throw a delay in here for like 2 seconds. Um, and we can see that we can make sure that our progress bar shows up when we're submitting. It's something to do. And I'll take a look at that in a second. Yep, okay, there's the progress bar. Oh, and we noticed the buttons were disabled while we were submitting. Look at that. And the error message goes away. Nice. Um, I don't know how I feel about like the fact that all of that shifts. Like I wonder if I should just make this like empty or something. Um, I don't know, thoughts. Okay. This was just with the test update credentials. Commit. That's fine. We can test with that. So let me commit this code real quick. Connecting VM with UI. Let's look at it real quick and then we'll talk about whether or not we want to change anything. So just for context, for anyone who might have shown up since CP was working on that, let me show you some stuff that we did earlier. So we have our login view model robot class somewhere, which is responsible for running some assertions around our login view model in the application. Why did this fail? I don't know. We'll look after. And one of those assertions is like we want to take a list of view states and assert that after performing some actions, all of those states were emitted by our view model. And we had a little bit of trickiness because this test function suspends. And so the way I typically write things is I would say like assert these view states, and then I would say do these things. But I couldn't get that to work with this being suspending. So we kind of inverted everything and we said, okay, let's call this, tell our robot, do these things, then assert all of these view states happen, await a view state, assert is equal to what we're expecting. And at the end, we just cancel because we're all done. So it sounds like CP has another way we can look at this, which we're going to look at right over here. So let's see how they did it here. Okay. So, oh, interesting. So this creates a coroutine scope. Is this like an extension on oh, I see. It's literally just a function. So is this like a global scope? Is this what this creates? So we have like a global scope where we call launch, and so it puts all of this in sort of its own um, function. Is that what's happening here? Or its own coroutine. This launches by itself, and then we can sort of run our assertion separately. That's what we're saying. With parents context. Interesting. So let's copy this real quick. Yeah, you need to call the launch. Okay. So oh, and I see. So this is I see. So returning this. So it's kind of like still having the apply function, which is nice. Okay, so are these the same? Oh, well, I guess they're not the same because the um words, the method signature is different. So I'm gonna put these side by side. Actually, let me check out the previous PR, by the way. Or just check out this branch. Um, so I can really compare. Okay, so I'm gonna put these side by side. So in the first one, we have to supply the action before running our assertions. In this case, we're saying launch a new coroutine, run those assertions, and then cancel. Okay. And then what that would do for us, if we want to see how that would change our tests, is over here, we have, okay, so we have this like assert view states after action, and we give it an action, and then our view states. What we're changing this to is we're basically saying get rid of this action parameter, and then, oops, we would add all these. Um, I have included the testing. No, oh, sorry, I missed it. That's fine, I already updated. Um, oh god. So then we would have something like this. Say mock login results, assert view states after action. I think in this case, I would no longer phrase it this way. I would say like, this is where I would go back to one naming convention I had, which is like expect view states. Um, and so like these are the view states I expect by the end of the test. And we say, okay, enter email, enter password, click login button. Um, that makes sense. Do we, how do I, can I, can I duplicate this? I can split, but I can't duplicate it. Thought there was a way. What do we think? Anyone who's watching, Do you have a preference? Did you like the action parameter better? Or do you like this setup where we just throw up at the front, okay, these are the view states I expect, now do your thing. Um, and I kind of like this. It's closer to what I'm used to writing. Like, this is the way I like to write my test robots. Um, that's kind of my personal preference here. Just thinking if there's any reason I wouldn't like this. But it got me anxious that I was using the launch. Yeah, that's the thing I don't like about it. It makes my tests more readable, but I'll be honest, I have no idea what I'm reading here. Um, and why can't we do global scope at launch? I mean, I know you're not supposed to, but like it's a test. So like, oh, is it yelling at me even if it's a test? Yeah. Um, yeah, like I like okay, so it does seem to cancel. Okay. Um, yeah, because that was one thing I was worried about. But I think the run blocking test, this method up here, I think this does some cleanup and or checks for coroutines that are hanging around. So that should have our back. Okay, let's try this out. And let's throw some documentation on this real quick. So, um, launch a coroutine that will observe our view model view state and ensure that um, we consume all of the supplied view states in the same order that they are supplied. I think that's accurate, right? Launch a coroutine that will observe our view model's view state and ensure that, oh, that note here, we should call this near the front of the test to ensure that every view state we emit can be collected by this. Okay, let's use that. Let's get rid of this. Let's here, this will require a little bit of change real quick. Expect view states. We'll have to do it here. Okay, that passed. So let's push this. Refactoring. Passed. Thanks. Because it hangs at the test collection, also returns, which is neat. Yeah, that is nice. Okay, I like that. We will go with that approach. Um, Sorry, I'm really tired for the stream, and I was trying to keep it short, but if I keep going through all of the stuff that I want login view model to do, um, we will be here all night, and I don't know if I want to do that. So I might skip some stuff again. We're gonna have to do it eventually, though. While we're waiting, let's go back to this branch, the connect with UI branch, and let's figure out why we couldn't push this. It looks like we had some detect failure. Let's see if we can figure out why that failed. We had a magic number. Oh, yeah, that's intended. Um, I'm gonna say that that's okay, just for this file. I don't know if I'm gonna remove it now. I might, but yeah. Let's do. Let's go with it. Let's just Yeah, because I really want to get to one thing I really want to get to tonight is documentation. I think that's something that would like interest a lot of people. Um, and maybe I should have made that a priority during the beginning of the stream. Um, because I don't just mean like documenting classes in KDocs. I mean like writing markdown files to document how this app works, how all of the pieces fit together. We had a Miro board that we looked at previously, um, where we set up the sort of flowchart for um, the login screen. And this is actually a little different now. And I think that it would be really good to make sure this is up to date and show what we plan to do for future screens moving on. So we could jump around, do that. I don't know. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's let this PR run. Um, I'm just talking. Chat was way more exciting last week when we spent the entire night arguing over naming conventions. But now there's no conventions to argue over. I feel like I'm just kind of talking, which is fine. I mean, that's what streams are for, right? So let's let's power through a little. When we go back to architecture, we'll start arguing again. Yeah. Well, actually, all right. Let's argue about one. Um, Okay, let's argue about one because I've got one in mind, and if that's what we have to do to make chat exciting, that's what we're gonna do. Okay, let's argue. I'm ready. We will. Let me show you what we're gonna argue about. So I'm gonna go back to this branch that we're making a pull request right now. So we want to finish the login view model. So we did the invalid. Let's keep talking about error handling. Yeah, everyone's here. As soon as I said arguing about conventions, everyone's like, "Oh no, we're still here." Okay, so um, let's keep going down the error handling rabbit hole. I didn't want to because like it's stressful, but hey, if that's what we like, let's do it. So we handled an unknown failure, right? We like if that comes back from our use case, we throw up an error message. If you have invalid credentials, which would be like a future thing from like an API, will show an error message. The next thing is when I submit, I want it to be that like when I click this login button and I have one of these as empty, and let's say like we're logging in. So let's say I'm not going to do like proper email validation. If it's empty, I want to show an error requesting it. Make a branch for that, and then let's talk about why I don't like the way we did this or structured this last week. Okay, so how did we structure this last week? Well, let's go back to login view state. Well, that's not what I want. Okay, and let's talk about one of our sealed class states. So this kind of made sense in my head, like that we could have an input error. And this is saying, hey, like one or both of these, your email input or your password input, has an error. And I don't like this as its own sealed class. The reason being, like, when we're in our view model, for example, okay, and the user changes their email, we construct a new state. We say, you're in the active state, and like your credentials are the current credentials with this updated email. So imagine, if you will, I press submit when I've done nothing on the screen, and email and password both show an error saying, hey, you need to enter this. And I start entering my email. Then I switch into the active state, and now that password error message has disappeared because I'm no longer in the input error state. So what I think makes sense, and what I'm worried everyone's going to yell at me for, is I actually think that these two properties can go on the active state. That like it's possible for you to be actively inputting data and have input error messages. I don't think that input error needs to be its own thing. And then the benefit of this is that if both fields have an error, but I change one, then I could still keep the error on the other input. But do you hate this? Am I wrong for capturing the error messages as part of the active state? I don't know. What do you think, chat? That's what I'm ready to fight about. It sounds reasonable. That's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted you to tell me I was wrong. Uh, okay. I like it though. If it's reasonable, I think we should do it. Um, can't you also have errors while submitting, for example? Um, I don't think so, right? Like, if, because I would not submit if you have errors. Or, like, technically it would be a different state. Like, let's say the errors happen after you start submitting. You would see the progress bar for like half a second and then the error would show up. But I actually don't think I would do that. I think I would do data validation before it even happens. Um, okay. So, all right, so this works. So let's run with this and we can test it out. So I just want to see if this is still running. Um, okay, it's technically still running. So let's keep on with this. So my personal preference is not mutually exclusive state though. So you missed all the fun arguing last week where we decided to go with mutually exclusive states. I am typically not a fan. This is the first project, well maybe not the first. This is the first project where I'm really buying into it. And uh, we'll see how it goes. I think that it's either way. I got a comment on a YouTube video. The person's like, that segment was like an hour and a half. This poor person watches the whole video and said, "I don't understand why you use sealed classes." And I'm like, "Well, maybe that approach just isn't for you. Like that's fine to come out of it with that idea." Uh, okay, but okay. The other thing is, I think I'm going to use our UI text class here that we made earlier, even though input error messages I think will always come from a string resource. I'm not going to like have an API return this, but for the sake of consistency, let's use our UI text class here again. Um, does the UI change when going from initial to active? I mean, it doesn't. I think that we could just create active with default credentials. Um, like we could eliminate some code there. I think it was kind of nice to like demonstrate like the initial landing state, but you're right, effectively, there is no difference. The only change is whether or not you input something. Um, let's get rid of this. I don't know if that's used anywhere. We'll find out. But okay, so we've got active and we've got these error messages. And so we have everything in place to write some TDD for this. So let's do that. Where do we start? Well, we start um, inside login view model test. So, how do we want to do this? Well, let's okay, let's just start a new test. And we're going to say um, test submit without credentials. Okay, and what's going to happen here? So, well, what do we have? So we'll have our initial state. Let's talk about all the states we're going to expect. So we're going to have initial, and then we're going to have invalid input state. We're basically going to have two states. So this will be login view state dot active. Our credentials will basically be default credentials or empty credentials. And then let's say email input error message, UI text at resource text. I don't have string resources, so let me add those real quick. So we'll say Um, please enter a password. We'll say please enter a password. We'll also add please enter an email. Okay, so here we'll expect r.string.error empty email, and then password input error message res will be UI text resource text r.string.error empty password. Okay, so these are the states we expect to have. So we can say test robot, build view model, expect states, um, initial state, invalid input state. You can avoid all that and don't enable the login button when they're empty, but that's a design decision. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier as like a cheap and easy solution. Um, I kind of want to make it hard on myself and not do that. There was a reason at my company we typically don't do that. We typically allow you to always press the button. And I think their argument for that was um, you could make that argument not on this screen, but the argument was sometimes like, well, the user might not have realized something was required. And like specifically, it was on a screen where there was like scrolling data that was sometimes it was off screen. And so they were like, if we don't allow you to submit, but the user can't even see the input field that they are missing, then like that's a problem. Obviously not an issue here. Everything fits on screen, but like we kind of go with that paradigm everywhere now. Um, and so like what happens on that screen is like if you press submit, it will like scroll to the missing field for you or something. Um, but yeah, on this screen it's all visible. It should be clear like, hey, you need to enter this, but I don't know, maybe it's a good example to have for I think people who'd be interested in handling this sort of error state. Um, so where are we at? We are at modifying the test. So these are the two states we expect. We're gonna go, I'm gonna say that we don't submit. I'm gonna say we validate data when you press the button. So you'll go straight from initial state into this active but errored state. Um, so then what we're gonna do here is we don't enter anything. We say click login button, and that's it. That's what this test looks like. Am I wrong? No, I don't think I'm wrong. Yeah, okay. So, of course, if we run this, um, it will fail because we haven't implemented this logic yet. Uh, but just sticking with the TDD approach and verifying that this will fail. Tests were not received, so I probably broke something. What did I break? Ah, I got rid of the input error thing. Um, so this is actually active. Why is this yelling at me now? Ah, okay. Um, because now I need get string local context that current. Oh, okay, this is long. Um, is that better? Or is that worse? Um, kind of want to do it like this. Maybe that's a little more readable. I wonder if there's a way. Um, okay, so I'm thinking of a like hacky thing here. Well, let me fix this other compilation issue down here. We've got the sequence of states. Really, this should be then active with an error. How about aha? Okay, money was uh reading my mind. So, god dang it, hold on. I gotta fix all these. Um, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Um, so, in case you missed it, so this is already an extension function here. Um, I'm torn. Well, this is 100% compose app. So if I were to put composable right on here, um, that would be fine. Uh, but I'm wondering if I want to keep that like just in case, and then maybe do a separate one that will be like um, get string with no parameters here, right? And then we can just do return this dot get string local context dot current. Um, it might be annoying here. Helper function that allows us to get strings from a composable context. What do we think? You should have a second composable one. Okay, great. Um, yeah, it's unlikely for me to use different ones, but I guess it's good to have them if I want them. Okay, so then what we can actually do then is do a search for get string, and specifically, so here we can remove that, remove that. Actually, let's just look for local context.current. That will tell me where I used it. And then over here, we can get rid of that. Okay, that's nicer. Um, so wherever that was. But now that, okay, so that makes like this a lot nicer. Um, cool. I don't know if Raphael's still here. Um, I know he shared this and he might not be using a Compose app, but uh, if he is, maybe that's an interesting extension function to think about. Yeah, cool. I just want to make sure you saw this. Like if you're using Compose in your app, maybe you would benefit from like this second extension function. Shout out Raphael for this whole UI text idea in the first place. Okay, so we've fixed compilation, I think. Let's run the test. I still need to see them fail. Okay, I am going to uh, say this now. It is 9 p.m. my time. I'm gonna do a hard stop in 1 hour. Whatever we get through in this next hour will be great. And I'm also going to just send someone a message about that real quick. Um, 1 sec. Where's the message? Okay, cool. So that's the hour warning. Let's see how far we can get. Um, why did the test pass? Oh, they didn't. Interesting. So the tests say they passed, but this exception happened. Um, no answer found for credentials login use case. That makes sense. Um, interesting. Okay, so I wonder if it's because this was in a coroutine. Um, I'm wondering if it's because the exception happened inside the coroutine. Um, I would have expected that failed my test. And did it fail the test? Is my IDE tricking me? What happens if oh, CP's got a solution here. Um, I just want to see if if the IDE is tricking me and what happens when I run this from the command line. Um, okay, so interesting. So that gave me build successful, um, even though there was an exception here. So how do I bubble that up? That is a good question. Um, I will wait to see if he has an answer. Um, oh, do you think it's an issue with the coroutine scope? Hmm. Okay, interesting. I can take a look at that. Let's go into our vModel robot, recreate this. Um, see if there's anything about errors in here. No. I think I remember seeing this in there was a whole conversation about this in the let me find it, hold on. Um, I actually think it might be an issue with run blocking test. Fail silently. Aha. So here's one thing. Before I click on yours, this was reported a while ago where someone showed like this exact same thing. You do viewModelScope.launch and you throw an exception, and it's not caught by anything. Oh, cool. So I've already thumbed up this before. Um, and so I don't remember what the whole outcome of this was. People are still commenting as of like this month. Aha, but there are solutions. Let's look at these solutions, and then I'll take a look at someone's like, oh god, this is really long. They've decided to fix it. Okay. So here's their very minimal reproducible example. We create a scope, we launch it, we throw an exception. Executing the test, you can see the stack trace in the log. This is what we see. But the test passes nonetheless. Roman Elizarov explains the same behavior can be observed, sorry, when using plain threads. Okay, makes sense. So, if you want exception to propagate to the test, you shall replace launch with async and replace join with await in your code. Okay. Um, we'll fail the test with the expected exception, but now we have another problem, how to propagate the deferred back to test so that we can await it. Do I need that? I don't know if I need that. Let me see what CP shared real quick. See if this gives me any helpful information. Oh, this is also by um, manual? Manual. Um, oh, do I need a supervisor job? I think this is about. Interesting. When async is used as a root coroutine, so this is what the other answer was saying. Exceptions are not thrown automatically. Instead, they're thrown when you call .await. In this case, notice that async will never throw the exception. Um, okay, wait, so how does this work? Also notice that we're using a supervisor scope to call async and await. As we said before, a supervisor job lets the coroutine handle the exception, as opposed to job that will automatically propagate it up in the hierarchy. This is getting really confusing. It's getting confusing, and I don't think that it's getting me toward my solution necessarily, because I'm not like creating that scope, right? The issue doesn't seem to be in our like in this coroutine scope necessarily, because all this is doing is asserting the states. The issue is that our view model launched a coroutine, and there was an exception inside of there, and it swallowed it. So let's go back to this to see if there was another example. What is this? We can install a default uncaught exception handler. So we basically just say thread.set default uncaught exception handler, and then we throw. This will crash fail the test, can be extracted into a rule without the need to modify the existing code. Exception stack trace purports a wrapped exception though, and could change the expected result of other well-behaved test. Okay, that's an interesting idea. Um, Although we cannot fail the test directly from a coroutine exception handler, we can keep the exception around and assert that no exception was thrown in our coroutine scope. Um, I don't really like that. I like that they have so many different solutions to this. Holy cow. Ooh, we can achieve the same thing in solution 3 in a much cleaner way using experimental API, test coroutine exception handler. Um, I don't think I can do this necessarily because, well, I guess I could pass it into the view model scope and pass this around, but that was such a thorough answer. Um, but I actually kind of like, I never encountered this because I have a try catch inside my view model scope at launch, so nothing is thrown to composable activity fragment. Hmm. Yeah, I don't really want a try catch. Because it doesn't make sense in the context of my app. Here it makes sense that it's like calling something that I didn't mock. And part of this is I need to write my test so that I don't even call that. Oh yeah, let me do that. I'm so sorry. Um, oops. And then I'll also add this in the stream notes before I forget. Um, are you using test coroutine scope? Need that. It looks like your cursor got moved around. Um, that's all good. Um, no, so I'm not using like a test coroutine scope. What's happening is I'm using the view model scope. That's from like the view model KTX library or whatever. Um, so this is what's running the coroutine in our example. And that's failing inside of here because it's technically what's happening is it's making this call, and I didn't mock this, so an exception happens, and it's just kind of being swallowed. Um, Now I could. Oh, um, so I'm actually wondering. I'm looking at one of their solutions was um, um, they like set this default exception handler, like, and then it just throws. I'm wondering if this will work. This sounds like really quick. Um, can be extracted into a rule without the need to modify existing code. So that would be nice. But let's just try this. We inject test codes and scope into our VM, so I have never run into this issue in tests. Interesting. Maybe that's better. Um, Maybe that's better. Uh, Let me try this thread thing just because I want to see if this actually does work. But then maybe that's better. And I think that what you suggested would be better. Um, that we inject the scope ourselves. Um, that would remove kind of like an implicit platform dependency too. Um, oh, hey, so that worked. Um, Job is already completed completing, but is being completed with completed exceptionally. Uh, okay, but this is what I think they said about like, does it wrap it? Do I get to see any info about what was actually an issue here? Um, I can't find in here where it's, oh, okay, so down here I see like the cause by. So I think if I throw, there's like throwable.cause. Can I not throw? No, no, I can't. That's fine. Um, if you can delegate that to a rule. Yeah, I definitely can. Um, is that better than injecting my own coroutine scope? I don't know. Um, but let's try making this a rule. I'm going to pull up this one, and I'm just going to put it off to this side so I can paste these together. Um, let's make a new file here. Thread exception handler test rule. That's what we'll call this one. Um, did that go in the right? No, that's supposed to go in here. Um, it's a lot less intrusive right now to do than injecting the scope. That is true. That is fair. Okay, so have this then test watcher, I think. So what do we do here? So when we're starting, we do this, which is like, we can even ignore that. Um, and then, so when we're finished, can we do, is there a reset? Um, what is the default? Like, is it null? Do I just like clear the default exception handler when I'm done? That's all I can think of. No, it's not null, but it's not this. The answer said, they pointed out, like, what they say? Create a rule and reset the default exception handler to the original value. Um, oh, so you're saying when you said need to keep a ref, so we would say like previous handler. Uh, what is this type? Thread dot caught exception handler. Okay, sorry, let's close this one. So here, so when we're starting, we say thread dot get default uncaught exception handler. Nice. And then here, previous handler. Okay, I think this is what we want to do. Okay, so here we're gonna say a custom test watcher that sets the default uncaught exception handler so that any exceptions inside of a view model scope will actually fail a test. And we are going to scroll up and we're going to hyperlink this issue in here. Yep, yeah, I was already on top of it. That's something that's really important to me. I have a whole talk on writing good code comments, and there was a section around like linking to documentation as being something that's really important, or linking to external resources. Okay, so then we can go back to our test here. We can get rid of this, and up here, we'll just add another one. Uh, thread exception. Or do I want to call it that? Thread exception handler. Yeah, I'll call it that. Um, okay, so now run this. I think we should have the same problem. It will fail. Um, and then we will update it to pass. Okay, so it failed. If we scroll in here, we can see why it failed because there was no answer found for, credentials login use case .invoke. The real fix here is we shouldn't even be calling credentials login use case. So what do we want to do instead? Well, let's go into our view model, wherever it is. And okay, so this function's getting a little unruly. How do I want to handle this? Um, I will handle it by collapsing that for now. So what I want to do here is I've got some credentials, and what I want to do is I want to validate those credentials. Is it not okay to have add the new test rule to our existing one? Um, you're saying like why like combine like why have two test rules? Um, Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like they do different things. Um, there's a good chance that I'll always use both, but they do different things. Um, and like if I'm always gonna use both, I could technically like try to combine them in some way or make like a base test class, but we'll see if that becomes an issue as we scale. Um, but okay, so what we're gonna do here is we want to basically validate our credentials. Um, Yeah, that's true. When I test those, I won't. But I still might need like the coroutines test rule for some of those. Um, okay. So when we click the button, we're going to get our credentials, and then we're basically going to want to like validate credentials and have that return like a Boolean. Um, this function kind of does a lot. I don't really like these, and we talked about whether or not this should be a use case. Um, but let's write it in the view model. Let's just kind of write out what we want to do, and then we can talk about whether or not it should be refactored. So let's call it validate credentials. And it will take some credentials and return a Boolean. So here we're going to say, given some, whoops, credentials, ensure that we've been provided valid information that can be used to log in. Um, if not, update our state accordingly and return whether or not to proceed. So this is debatable whether or not like this function should do both of those. This is technically um, breaking single responsibility, in my opinion. If I have something that's going to both validate credentials, update the state, and then return. Um, but let's write it out and then let's talk about it because I'm not really sure what I want to do instead. Um, um, so basically, we're going to want to set like, so I want to know, do we have an email? Which will be credentials.email value that is not empty. And I'm going to say, do we have password? Credentials.password.value that is not empty. Whoops. Okay. So then I've kind of got like so we're basically going to say return has email and has password. So this is fine, but I kind of want a side effect here, which is like view state equals um login view state dot active, and basically say like credentials equals credentials. Um, basically do email input error message res, and then oh my god, this gets confusing. So if isn't there a take if um like has email dot take if um no, this is confusing. Let me write it out and then we can maybe play some code golf. So say if has email, then this is null. Otherwise, um, we want to return a resource text. Uh, r.string that error empty email. So that's kind of what I want. This is what I want to do, right? But I don't think that this is the way that I should be writing it. But I don't know what the. There's a lot of things that I would want to change here. I think. Okay. Oh my God. So this is the idea. We check if we have an email and password. We update our view state accordingly. If we don't have one, we want to show an error. Um, and then we return true if we have both pieces of information. So then what would happen up here is we would say if not validate credentials, parent credentials, um, then we want to return early and don't proceed to try to log in the user. So this actually, I think, will pass my test, but the question is whether or not we want it to be built this way. Why do I close the window every time? I think I want to like clear space for the text, and I keep forgetting this is important. Okay, so the test did pass. Um, so I think the question is just like, does all this logic belong in the view model? Um, should I like pull this out into another function that is like update error messages? Should ask if input validation is business logic. In my opinion, it is, right? Like it's, um, yeah, like even though I'm checking for empty, like do I have input in the first place? Like, mm, okay, um, we could do that. We could do that. Um, we could do that. So let's think about that then. Let's go back to, well, actually, let's remove this line for now. I want to go back to making this fail and see. Um, yeah, so I'm kind of thinking about, I mean, we could have a helper like that, but to me, that helper class would be more like, I could see that helper class being more like, does this email match like a valid email regex? Um, or something like that. Or yeah, like maybe it's right, like we could make that class and have it inside the domain layer. Um, let's break that down kind of step by step. Let's what is that step by step? Um, and write some tests about it. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's let me commit what I have here, even though it's broken. Starting to work on input validation. I just want to like get rid of all those colors and reset my brain for a second. Can your value class make use of vetoable? It could, but I don't think we need it here because like null or like an empty string is it's valid in the sense that like that's what the state is at the beginning, right? Um, but it's invalid in the sense that like I can't commit without that information. Ah, hate that. That's fine. So let's consider the use case flow and let's think about like where that makes things a little more confusing. So um, one reason I don't like it is so we've got this login result, which is like what can happen when the user tries to log in, right? Um, and effectively, again, this is the problem is we think of like effectively this matches the repository, but the whole point is to be decoupled from the repository, that it doesn't have to. But I'm just thinking about how I want to model like invalid credentials from failure. And I think the answer to that would be like uh basically we'd put another entry like um invalid input. I don't know. Um do we want to call it invalid input? Empty credentials. That's what we could call. Ah, I love it. Thank you. Okay. So, okay. Um, yep, that's what I was gonna say next is what do we put in here? Uh, so we could have empty credentials. So empty email will be a Boolean. Empty password will be a Boolean. Oh, I love this. This is gonna look so nice. I can already see it when we put this all together. This is gonna look so nice. Um, this will be returned when the user tries to log in, when either of the input fields are left empty. Oh, this is gonna look so nice inside the view model now. Um, I can like already see the light. Okay, so okay, so let's go with that. And we've already got it. So let's not worry about updating the um. I am on I am on Kotlin 1.5. We considered a sealed interface, but I'm just so used to sealed classes, and I don't really see like the major differences between the two to like warrant an interface yet. But I'm open to it. Um, okay, so let's ditch this for now. Um, we're gonna ditch that for now. We're not doing that inside the view model. Instead, uh, our view model should look like this. Um, we're going to say is login result dot failure dot empty credentials. So here, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. I love interfaces, but I don't really see like sealed interfaces any different from sealed classes. Um, okay, but then, so let's talk about this. So we're going to go back into login view state dot active. Credentials will be current credentials. Um, let's see if we can play some code golf here. So we're going to say if um, login result. So now we can say empty email. Um, we want this to be resource text. Um, there, empty email. Else null. So I'm just thinking about code golf here. Like, how can we make this a little cleaner? Um, login result at to login view state. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. I'll probably make that to clean this up. Um, and I mean, we can do that now. Like, do I want to put those? I guess we'll put them down here. And I think I'll do, I'm going to do it for each one to make it a little clear here. Um, we'll split it up. But let's talk about this credentials one real quick. Um, oops, no return there. Um, so I'm thinking about, oh, I'm going to need the current credentials, and that's fine. Um, um, okay, so getting ahead of ourselves here, but I'm thinking about code golf here. Is there a way that I could make this a little more readable? And I actually have an interesting idea, but I don't know if we're gonna like it. Is so for password, we could create the resource text, right? Um, and then in Kotlin we have this like take if, which will basically give you a lambda, and we'll say like if this is true, um, actually take the value. If it's not, return null. So here we just say like we're returning empty password. So uh, to be more specific, like this dot empty password. So I think like this is actually kind of nice, and we're saying like here's what we could return, um, but only take this if like this property is true. What do we think about this? Is this more confusing or is this actually nicer than the if else? This is definitely the more like Kotlin-esque approach to doing things. Um, I kind of like it now that I'm looking at it. It's fine. I will take fine. Um, okay. We'll clean up more of these. Let's just do them now. Okay, hold on. Um, so can I'm wondering if you can, I have my reservations. That's fine. Um, when I extract, can I make it an extension function? Um, well, actually here, with if else you don't create the object. That's true. It's true. But it's a sealed class with like one singular string resource. But you're right. I'm not um I wish there was something similar where I could put the boolean first. Where I mean I could technically do like I could technically invert it, right? Like okay, let me copy this. I could technically invert it and be like, this dot empty password dot take if, right? And then I could be like map to this or something. That's worse. This is worse. Um, yeah, to me this is worse. I could have made that nicer, but you're right. It's not something that's gonna happen often. And it's, uh, okay. Um, I was gonna clean up these other ones, but um, keyboard crapping out. That's funny. I'll clean up these other ones later. Let's run our test now and see what happens. Actually, so our test will fail. Back for the first reason. Um, and that our test is now kind of written wrong because our test is written in a way that we're saying, we expect the validation to happen before we even go to um, the new state. So instead, let's set some credentials to be our default credentials here. Um, and then, so what we want to do actually is we want to mock login result for credentials. So when we call with these empty credentials, we want our result to be login result dot failure dot empty credentials. And then here we'll say true, true. And the IDE will yell at me because I have two booleans. I should add names to call arguments. And I think that this will pass. Um, let's hope so. It does. Nice. Okay, so our view model is prepared to handle empty credentials. Now, our use case still does not. So let's see if we can. We do have a prod credentials login use case test. So let's up so we've got like this test unknown failure, invalid credentials. Um, let's copy this and let's make a, you know, test empty credential login. And actually, I should remove all of this because, um, well, let me keep it here, but let me rethink this test kind of from the ground up. So we don't need to do any mocking with our login repository um, because we don't make a call. We're planning not to make a call to the repository here. So basically what we want to do is we'll set our credentials to be more specifically, empty credentials, right? And what we'll do is we'll get a result, and we want to assert that result that is equal to um, login result that failure dot empty credentials. True, true. Um, well, a lot going on here. I do need to create the use case, so that part needs to come back. Um, and let's clean up this code a little bit here. Um, so we get the result, we assert this is true, and um, I do want to verify, hey, like no token was stored. I could also, I don't have a method, but we could go into login repository. We could say like verify no login call as like something we would want to do. Um, I think that's like a potentially important distinction we could make. So let's do that real quick. So here we basically just want to go to like co-verify um, exactly equals 0 mock.login with any credentials. Like we just want to verify we never call login. So that's our test. That's a quick and easy update. Um, get the result. We expect empty credentials, empty email and password to both be true here. Um, let's run this, make sure it fails, and then we will update our production use case. Man, do I love it's really nice. Like it's hard to get used to, but once you've written a few tests and you have the setup, like I feel like we're developing a lot faster and like with way more confidence in what we're doing. Um, it's been really great. No answer found for login, empty. Oh, that's fine. So the problem is we tried to log in, we shouldn't have. I keep reading this as if like I am making a mistake here. Okay, so let's go into this use case. So here we talked about we could make a validator, or I'm kind of thinking, um, hmm, so how do I want to do this? Um, I don't really, I mean, I don't really want to say like, let me write out the logic again, and then we'll figure out where to put it. Or, whoops, credentials dot, email. No, oh my God, I can't type. Credentials dot email dot value that is empty. And then, or rather, is not empty. Uh, what's the logic I want here? Do I want has email or do I want missing email? I care about whether or not it's missing, really. Um, missing password. So what I want to do here then is be like, okay, well, if we're missing email or we're missing password, then we're actually going to return login result dot failure dot empty credentials. Um, empty email equals missing email, password. Yeah, that's actually what I should rename them to. So this is what I want, but I'm actually just thinking about like, where do I put this logic? Do I want to put it at the front of invoke? And I kind of want to pull it into its own function, but then it's, see, the IDE is even confused. Um, because if I do something like this, let me write it out and then we'll see. If I do something like the same thing, the validate credentials, like, um, what do I do here? What do I return from this? Like, do I return login result or null? Um, I suggest to validate it with a function for each field. So that's fine. But then, like, okay. But then my question is still the same. Like, do I just plunk that in front of, like, my problem is organizing, like, the validation check. Like, imagine I don't use a validator and I want to just keep it local. So I have like a private function. You can imagine this is private, right? Or imagine that it's some validator thing, and then it does this. And so then it's like, well, what do I return here? Do I return a Boolean or do I return login result? And like I could maybe have it be like a login result, like else null, else return null. Um, right, like this is an option. And then what I could consider doing, so let me just let y'all see that. We could have a private function validate credentials and have that return an optional login result. And then like over here we could do like I don't know, like if, you know, we could say validate credentials. And then if this is true, we want to return it or something. Um, but I don't love this. Right, well, okay, fair. But it still would be like nullable, right? Because I'm saying that we're validating credentials, so this may or may not be here. Um, but then like, so is this the way I would write it? Like, I guess this isn't awful. Um, it just feels weird to have this like this check here, but I don't know a better way of organizing it. It's fine. Okay. Thank you for validating me. No pun intended. Yeah, I guess an if makes sense. So yeah, if I were using a validator service, I would have it return like a base login result. Because we could say like, validator.validate credentials, right? Um, and then yeah, if validation result not equal to n, null, return validation result. Okay, I like this. This is better, I think, actually. This is a lot better to me. Sometimes the Kotlin code golf gets to my head. But our unit tests are passing. So cool. All right, I love it. That's improvement. So the last thing I'm gonna do, I have 12 minutes left. Um, one last thing I'm gonna do is back inside our login view model test here. So we have this submit without credentials, right? I'm going to enhance this, and I'm going to write, why did you fail? Let me write another test, then I'll figure it out. And I'm going to test clear errors after input. And so basically what I want to do is, okay, so I click the login button and I see that state. And then I want to, okay, we'll enter an email. Um, let's throw that in here. So we enter those. test email, test password. Um, so we'll have an email input state. And the important thing is here, okay, so this will be the invalid input state, that copy, and then here credentials will be basically credentials where the email is equal to our test email. But also we're going to say email input error message here. We expect this to be null. Let me say after email input. Or yeah, email input error state. So, and then password input error state. This will be the email input state, that copy. This copy method may seem weird here, but I'm just kind of keeping my test cleaner. Um, Maybe I shouldn't do that. You can do it with an initial state of active with the errors. I mean, that's what this is, right? Um, yeah, okay, here, instead of this one copying email, I'm going to go back to this one copying invalid input state. Um, and then credentials here will be credentials. We'll have our email, our password, and then the email input error message here is null, the password input error message here is null. Um, Email input state, password input state. So basically we want to say like what we're expecting to change in our tests here, if this isn't clear, is once I input an email, I want the error message to be null. I want to clear it once I start inputting an email. Same thing once I start inputting a password. If I run this as it is, this will fail because we're not clearing that password. So this is, again, great TDD approach here. Huh? Aha! Wait, this is suspicious. Why did this pass? And is it failing silently? So, hmm, don't need to clear them, you update the state with each result. I'm not sure what you mean. Well, so, okay, but actually, mm, I don't think it does. Because, okay, so, well, here's why. When I enter an email, right, we basically create a whole new, um, well, so here's the thing. So when I enter an email, I create a whole new active state. Um, so actually, my implementation does take care of it in that it creates a new active state where there are no error messages. But this is a new active state where there are no error messages. So let's consider that I only enter email. Let me remove this. So let's consider that I only enter email. Um, Technically, if I want to be a little more strict here, let me pull it out. I just actually want to point this out and walk through this. So what I'm actually expecting to happen here, what I would expect to happen is I would be in the active state. I would have supplied an email. The email message is null, but I expect the password message to still be there. Um, this is what I want to happen. So I would expect this test to fail because that password error message is no longer there. why the heck does this pass? And I'm wondering if it's passing because I'm wondering if it's like comparing the base data class and not comparing the two active instances or something. Um, if that makes sense. Like, all right, have a good night, Raphael. We'll be wrapping up in the next 5-10 minutes anyways. So, if as long as I can figure this, what's happening here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into expect view states, and then um, I'm gonna split this up. I'm gonna say await item, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna set a conditional breakpoint. Um, and on the condition that state is login view state active. Do I actually want this? Um, well, that's one way I could look at it, I guess. But there will be two of those. So let's debug this test. Okay, this doesn't work probably because it's in a coroutine. Um, can I print to the log? Will those show up? I don't know the answer to that. Let's find out. Um, just want to resolve why these aren't being treated as equal. Oh, I saw it a second ago. Um, okay, yeah, so wait, is it only that doesn't make any sense. Why do I only see it printed once for the initial state? What in tarnation? Will this fail? We got some weirdness going on. Okay, yep, we got some weirdness going on. So this seems to only compare the first state, and then it stops looping. Or does it stop looping, or what's happening? Um, let me print state before we do this await. Um, maybe my test is canceling this before it's actually done. Um, like that's a possible problem with this approach, as opposed to the yeah, okay, look at this. So, um, we see it wants to compare this next state, but when it's awaiting an item, the test isn't done. And the test is like the test cancels. Um, and I wonder if that's the problem of launching this coroutine scope as opposed to supplying the action ourselves. I wonder if I need to go back to um, is that an issue with run blocking test? If I change this to just run blocking, do I have the same issue? The await item should be blocking, but what I think is happening is that I think that where's it at? I think this coroutine scope like gets cleaned up even though it's happening. Yeah. So I almost think we need to go back to okay. Let's let's see how fast we can do this. Yeah, it was too good to be true. Um, but that's fine. We can make it work. Let's just So we're going back to the approach from earlier where we run the action, we assert the states, we cancel. Okay, let's go back to our view model test. This is going to be annoying, um, but that's fine. Let's pull this up here, do the mock first. These are the tests we have to run. And so here we can say action here will be click login button, enter email. Oh God, what did I do? There we go. Cool, that's one test fixed here. Um, again, pull this below here. Action will be click login button. Uh, Login button. There we go. Oh my God, so many tests to update here. This is annoying. What is always forget what the multi-cursor trick is. I know that one exists where I can just go up those lines and clear all the periods at the same time, but I never know what it is. I always forget what it is. And all right, we're so close. We're so close. Double tap Alt, then press up or down. Okay, let me try that. Um, oh God, oh no, I'm screwing things up. I don't know, that might be a Windows thing. I'm just gonna go back. Hold Alt Shift, then add. Okay, I'll play with it later. Because I'm running out of time. I said I would stop at 10 and it's 10:03, and I really don't want to be too late. Um, just want to see if I can get a little bit further. Okay, more than one thing failed. Oh, well, let's see. So, but it sounds like they're working better now. Test submit without credentials. Um, so we expected. Oh, okay. So our tests are working again. Um, so we expected to see this error message res resource text, but here we just see we see submitting. So that is because why is that? Oh, um, that makes sense because we changed it so that we still see submitting no matter what. Because the way the view model works is, and this I guess is by design, we set submitting before anything even comes back, including empty credentials. So we're going to update this test to include the submitting state. which is fine. So login view state dot submitting credentials credentials. Um, so our expect view states, we want to add the submitting state in here. I think the same applies here. Yeah, we need the submitting state. So login view state dot submitting credentials. Credentials. Okay, that works. We're going to add that here. Um, okay, and then let's go a step further now that we kind of have an idea. So then we're going to have our password input state. So this will be active. We want to add the password. Test password, which isn't there anymore. And then here, this error message will be null. Let's add our test password at the top. Oh god. Okay, I'm Russian. And then add that as. Okay, so now if we run these, the one that will fail will be our submit with. Oh, I'm also on Mac money, but maybe I just messed up. I always forget what's alt, what's control, and whatever. Okay, so this failed because we expected password input message to be null, but or we expected it to be not null, and it was null. Okay, so um, how do we fix this? Well, this is actually kind of confusing because I need a way to figure out what the current error message is, if any. And I guess one way to do this is check to see if we were in the active state before this. So we could say like current email error message will be viewState.value as um, login viewState.active email input error message. So, and then like we would have current password error message. And so here, well, okay, so if I'm updating the email, I guess my email input, because I don't know that I'm coming from an active state necessarily. Like, I guess it makes sense, but, well, in theory, I could be coming from the submitting state. Ooh, so this could be an issue because, oh no, it wouldn't. I guess, I guess I'm going to be coming from active if I'm able to enter an email. But I guess I'm just being type safe here. Um, but I guess now that I think about it, when I update the email, I always want that to go back to null. But I want the password to be whatever the current password one is. Like I want that to stay the same. And so the same, or sort of the inverse logic in password, I want the current email error message. So view state that value as login view state that active email input error message. So here we'll say the password error message will be null, but the email will be whatever the current email one is. And let's see, it might not be the prettiest logic, but I think it will be working logic. And if it is, I'm going to make this pull request, and then I'm going to sign off, and I will clean up the pull request later. And I really got to start doing more than Wednesday streams. God damn it. Because I need more time. Okay, this failed. Why? Um, hydrate. Cheers. Um, timed out waiting. Why? Um, am I missing anything? Initial submitting, invalid inputs, email input. Oh, because I messed with this earlier and I didn't put enter password back in. Um, that's what I did wrong. So it's waiting for a state that didn't happen because I never made this action. No, that was a good guess. Okay, please work, please work, please work. Big money, big money, big money, no way me. Yes. Ah, that feels so good. Okay, let's push this, I hope. No, not helpful. Updating tests, clearing input errors. Okay, so I am going to, yes, see you next Wednesday. Let's just make sure we can push this, um, because I need to, yep. Ah, why did this fail? Return cal. God dang it. Okay, this is detect yelling at me. Um, Login use case. Interesting. This is, do I really have that many different return statements? I guess I do. All right. So detect is yelling at me because this file is not structured. I will have to reorganize that, but unfortunately I do have to go. So maybe I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll just do the like refactoring off stream because I'm not going to change anything about how this works. But I had fun. That was a lot of more TDD. I hope that was interesting. Um, but yeah, I am going to run. Thank you all for coming by. Sorry for the failed stream at the beginning.